Darkseid and Thanos are supposed to be two of the strongest and most formidable villains, respectively, in the DC and Marvel multiverses. But one very big question in a lot of people's minds is this also the case in video games? Today in this video we answer this question. We'll take a look at officially released video games as well as fan-made video games in order to see which video game appearances of theirs are most true to their character. Before I start my analysis, I just want to let everyone know that I'll link the videos that all the footage in this video is from in the top right title cards and in the description of this video, so that everyone can watch these videos that the footage is from. Now I'm pretty sure for most fans of the superhero genre, Darkseid needs no introduction, but let's just go over a few of his characteristics and abilities so that I can highlight why he should be a very powerful final boss in video games. Darkseid is a new god in the DC multiverse, and then he's referred to as a god that usually means near omnipotent and not omnipotent. In movies, TV shows, video games, comics, the word god is used very loosely. A full god would be someone who is omnipotent, so in Darkseid and Thanos' case it's more appropriate to describe them as demigods. Now, with all that said, let's briefly describe a few of Darkseid's characteristics. Darkseid is basically a being that is so huge that he is basically everywhere in the DC multiverse. And the way he subjugates parts of the DC multiverse to his will is by sending smaller avatars of himself to different sectors of the multiverse. Since he's too big to conquer the multiverse one sector at a time, and given how big the multiverse is, even if he were to try and conquer each sector one by one, it would take him a zillion years. Now, each avatar of Darkseid is super strong, usually scaling to Superman's strength and toughness, without the anti-life equation. The anti-life equation is in a way DC's equivalent to the Infinity Stones, but it's not 6 different entities like the Infinity Stones. It's basically just pure ultimate knowledge that grants whoever possesses it the knowledge of everything, granting them the ability to use this knowledge to defeat and subjugate whoever challenges them. Now, even if we were to scale Darkseid as equal to Superman's strength and toughness, while he hasn't discovered and used the anti-life equation, given that Darkseid has been around roughly for 10,000 to 5,000 years at least in most of the DC universes, because we see him fighting the ancient Greek gods in the Snyder Cut of Justice League, we know that he's very experienced in fighting. The ancient Greek gods are known as the old gods in DC, and then the original DC characters who are equally as powerful are known as the new gods, like Darkseid and Highfather from New Genesis. And also, given that he has very good scientists working for him to develop very effective weapons, and his ability to wield very deadly weapons that occur naturally make him an extremely formidable foe. His arsenal of external weapons includes the mother boxes and father boxes that can unleash so much energy that they can basically terraform entire planets and can restart the vitals of Kryptonians when Kryptonians are in a coma. His boom tubes are like wormholes that can bend space and time and teleport his foes into a blue star or a supernova. And very few beings even in the DC multiverse can survive that. These are just few of the external weapons that Darkseid uses. With all these abilities, we would expect Darkseid to be an excruciatingly hard boss fight to defeat, but we'll see if that is the case. Now, let's have a look at some of the games Darkseid has been in. Superman the game released way back in 1985, so at this point it is a 40-year-old game, and it's also not an 8-bit NES classic because it was released on other 8-bit systems, unlike Batman the video game based on the 1989 movie and Ninja Turtles 3 The Manhattan Project, which were both considered NES classics. So because it's pretty outdated and the 8-bit hardware couldn't do justice to these characters, we'll skip this game. I know many grandpas will be pretty angry at me for saying this, but it's just the honest truth. Now, Justice League Task Force is really the first time the Justice League as a whole was featured in a widely marketed video game, and many of the character models and sprites that are used in this game are used in fan-made games today also. So it can be said that the art style of Justice League Task Force inspired many fan-made games today. However, from what I've heard about this game, it's basically a chore to play because of its small roster and bad controls when we have the Injustice series by comparison. So we're going to take a skip on this one as well, since it's pretty outdated by today's standards. I know, again, a lot of grandpas will be angry at me for saying this, but that's just the honest truth. Moving on to Superman 64. Now, a lot of fans of the superhero and superheroine genre and gamers are aware of how bad Superman 64 is. It is notorious for being one of the worst games ever made. Just looking at the gameplay footage makes you repulsed to the thought of having to play Superman 64. So we're definitely going to be taking a pass on Superman 64, and almost no one will blame me. I'll let the angry video game nerd do multiple playthroughs of the game. Moving on. So Superman Shadow of Apocalypse is considered to be one of the best 3D Superman video games which released during the PS1 and the PS2 eras. However, I did not like the mechanics of the game for the little time that I played it, so we're going to be taking a pass on this one as well. I'm sure a lot of fans and gamers haven't played this game either, so they won't be having a lot of nostalgia associated with it. If you played this game and you enjoy it, then I apologize, but it's just not that well known. Now, Justice League Heroes. This is a game we're going to be taking a look at. This is actually the game that made me a huge DC fan because of how powerful it felt playing as Superman. So we're definitely going to be taking a look at this game in depth. Moving on to Puzzle and Dragons and Scribble Knots Unmasked, a DC Comics adventure. We're also going to be taking a pass on these games because they're just meant to be fun games for a very young audience. They're not meant to simulate the actual battles versus supervillains, like if you were actually fighting the supervillains in their respective universes. Now, DC Universe Online. DC Universe Online is a well-known DC game. However, you don't play as the DC superheroes in this game, you play as some random character who only exists in the universe of that specific game. So it kind of defeats the purpose of simulating the battles between the well-known superheroes and supervillains. Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe is actually a game that tried to make you feel like you were playing as the DC characters and tries to create a true character environment in battles. I actually played this game a lot back in the day. In fact, it's one of the first games that I uploaded YouTube videos of when I started making my YouTube channel back in the day. So I'm going to be taking a look at this one and seeing how formidable Darkseid is in this game. I'm also going to be talking about Injustice 2 because I've played a lot of that game too, and Darkseid is a downloadable character in that game. Finally, we'll be skipping all the LEGO games because the LEGO games are supposed to be easy primarily for fun and not to showcase the DC characters' abilities and capabilities true to their character. I know I'm skipping a lot of video games, but unfortunately there haven't been a lot of official DC games that are meant to seriously stimulate the battles between the superpowered DC characters. With all this said, let's see how formidable Darkseid is in Justice League Heroes. Then we'll analyze how formidable he is in MK vs. DC and then Injustice 2. So, spoiler alert, in Justice League Heroes, Darkseid is the final boss. The game is almost 20 years old at this point, so I hope I haven't spoiled it for anyone who plans on playing it for the first time. Now, what I always thought was this final boss fight was easy. When I recently uploaded my playthrough of Justice League Heroes on YouTube, I beat this boss fight on my 5th attempt. I would have beaten it on my first attempt, but I wanted to use Superman all the way through, so the previous 4 times when Superman went down early, I just restarted the boss fight. If you upgrade your character well and place boosts on them, then that automatically wins like 70% of this boss fight for you before you even start the boss fight, because you can see my upgraded and boosted heat vision just zones him out and wrecks him. All you really need to be aware of when he throws the sensory matrix hypercube at you, which is that glowing yellow thing, because if that hits you, it's a one-hit KO. If you dodge his Sensory Matrix Hypercube attack by moving around, zone him out with long-range attacks, this fight is basically a cakewalk. You fight him for 3 rounds, and you can use the 7, 8, or even more heroes for this boss fight, I think, depending on how many heroes you have unlocked. In round 1 and round 3, you fight him without him having any shields. In round 2, you basically have to destroy the smaller towers that are shielding him in order to do damage to him. But since you have basically on an average 8 heroes you can use, then basically that means that you get 8 tries on an average for this boss fight. And the other funny story is that, like, way back in 2007, when me and my friend were playing this game, like, we didn't even know that we could upgrade our characters, like upgrade their powers, upgrade their health and all that. And we didn't even know that we could boost our characters with, like, the boosts that are dropped. So we literally, like, beat the game on medium, just as strong as how we are, like, during the start of the game. Like, we didn't use any power-ups, no boosts. So that basically tells you that it's really not that hard of a boss fight on medium if you can just, like, use an unupgraded character and win that way. So yeah, the verdict is that Darkseid is basically a weakling in Justice League Heroes. Now let's have a look at how he holds up in MK vs DC.
So I played MK vs DC on medium hard and very hard difficulty. Originally, when the game came out in 2008, I was playing on medium difficulty and I destroyed Darkseid. Later on in 2015 to 2017, I played the game on hard and very hard and destroyed him again. And recently again in 2025, I returned to revisit the game because I wanted to play the story mode. Also take on Darkseid with other characters other than Superman on very hard. So as far as how skilled Darkseid is in this game, the answer is that he's a weakling in this game too. On the max difficulty settings, if you use Superman's heat vision and Superman's super breath along with your rage, which gives you the ability to absorb more damage and do more damage for a limited time, and time your attacks even just a little well, then Darkseid goes down pretty easily. I beat him on my very first try when I returned to playing MK vs DC in 2017, and then again in 2025 to see if I could win when playing on the max difficulty setting. Moreover, Flash's stunning attack, which is referred to as his around the world move, is particularly effective in stunning Darkseid, leaving him open to take hits and giving you time to do your attacks and combos on him. Another attack that I find particularly effective against Darkseid is Batman's smoke escape attack, in which Batman drops a smoke pellet, escapes, and then drop kicks his opponent from above. This attack is particularly effective in dodging Darkseid's heavy and slow attacks. Using Flash, it literally took me 3 tries max to defeat Darkseid. With Batman, I beat him on my 7th try, so it didn't really feel like fighting the sub-boss of the game. I had more trouble winning versus Sonya using Batman than I had with Darkseid using Batman.
Batman win.
So moving on to Injustice 2 now. With Injustice 2, you can customize how strong or how weak you want your character to be. The more further you progress in the game and the more you level up the character, the more gear you unlock, and the more gear you unlock, the stronger your character gets with that specific gear. So if you have like level 30 gear, like you can see it in all these loadouts, and it's legendary gear or it's epic gear, then that makes your character really strong. If you just have like the regular gear or you don't like use gear at all, then your character stays weak. So you can have like your strength, your ability, your defense, and your HP like anywhere from, I think it's 1,000 all the way to like the highest is 4,000 for something. So you can basically make your opponent like 3 times or 4 times stronger than you, or 3 times or 4 times weaker than you. So right now we're fighting a Darkseid that's basically just a little stronger than us. So if our strength and toughness is at 100%, then his is maybe like, I don't know, maybe between 110 and 115. So as you can see, when it's a fair fight, then the AI is competent in this game. Like, not very competent, but I would just say competent. So I guess it can be like a little bit of a challenge, but it's not really the excruciatingly hard boss fight or true to character boss fight if you set all the statistics to equal. As you can see over here, like, we're pretty evenly matched. So I would say if you compare other characters to Darkseid, like, Darkseid is definitely not the strongest or the second strongest in this game. Like, the strongest is probably Brainiac, but just like by a little bit. Like, when he's in his ship and he has all his like mechanical arms to take you around and throw you around and beat you up, then one of those mechanical arms does like insane amount of damage, like maybe 30% of your health if it hits like just once. And by 30% I mean like the entire like 2 health bars that you have, the gray bar and the red bar. So that's how overpowered Brainiac is in this game, and like that's true to Brainiac's character because he's supposed to be like super strong, especially when he's inside his ship. And then the second strongest character, like at the level 30, is Leonardo, because he has this ability, or like overall all 4 Ninja Turtles have this ability to absorb your attacks, and like your attacks won't do damage then, and they just like absorb the hit and they block. And Leonardo has this ability to call the other turtles and hit you in like areas all over the stage, so it's really hard to fight him. Like, I posted a video fighting Leonardo and I just barely managed to beat him on very hard. But I guess the advantage with Injustice 2 is that if you want like a really excruciatingly hard boss fight versus Darkseid, so you can make him like 2 times or 3 times stronger than your character, which is probably something I'll do in the future, like have a boss fight against Darkseid where he's like, I don't know, like at least like maybe 2 times stronger than me, and see if I can win that way. But to answer the question, like, he's not a weakling in this game because it's variable. Like, you can make him however weak or however much stronger you want, like within limits obviously. Like, you can't make him like 10 times weaker or like 10 times stronger than you. So I would say when we answer the question, Darkseid is variable in this game. Like, you can have him however you want to fight him. Like, if you want him to be a punching bag, you can make him a lot weaker than you, and if you want him to be true to character, then you can make him like a lot stronger than yourself. So let's look at some fan games now.
Now moving on to fan-made games. For anyone unaware, Mugen is an extremely powerful engine that lets you create countless, mostly 2D fights. You can basically have just about any character fight any character using this engine, as long as the character you want to use and the character you want to fight have both been created to run on a version of Mugen. Mugen has a lot of characters that you can both use and fight against with varying degrees of power, speed, and AI difficulties. Many characters are underpowered and easy to fight versus, while others are immensely overpowered and difficult to defeat. So needless to say, this engine can be used to create a very difficult Darkseid to fight, which is exactly how the Darkseid character plays like, who is made and edited by Wucash, along with help from many others who are credited in the description of this video. Wukash's Darkseid from Mugen has some very high damage dealing attacks which also hit fast, like his ground stomp and telekinetic attack, which if they hit can drain half to 2/3 of your life bar, along with his various Omega Beam and Omega Effect attacks that do a ton of damage. Also, every now and then, if you manage to get the upper hand, he swarms you with his parademons to break your combos and knock you backwards, giving him an opportunity to deal more damage to you. His combos also manage to get in a couple of high damage dealing hits. If you manage to get an upper hand again in the fight, he'll use his boom tube attack to teleport you to a very harsh damage dealing environment, which will reduce like half your life bar, and then he teleports you back to the fight so that he can make sure that he finished you off. All of these abilities make this version of Darkseid extremely formidable, so my verdict
for this version of Darkseid is that he's the first true to character version of Darkseid that exists in video games. And when I say true to character, I mean formidable enough to be an overpowered boss character, which this version definitely is. I had a lot of fun taking him on using Superman, Batman, Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, and Nightwing. We'll probably have more fun taking him on in future using other characters.
Oh my god! What the fuck, man?
Now moving on to the second fan-made game that I thought really represented Darkseid true to his character is TMNT Cross Justice League. We mentioned before that fan-made games use the art style and sprites from the SNES version of Justice League Task Force. This is an example of a game that does exactly that for nostalgic purposes. Interestingly, it also uses the sprites and art style of TMNT Tournament Fighters for the SNES, which was the TMNT fighting game on the SNES. Combining the two games into one amazing nostalgic game as an homage. A great throwback for gamers who were kids in the 1990s. The final boss fight versus Darkseid Omega is intense to say the least. It took me multiple attempts to even defeat him on medium difficulty. I had to beat the arcade mode in 2v2 tag team mode because the 1v1 mode is glitched, causing the game to crash at times. The only characters I was able to use that could actually break his combos before he drained like 35% of your entire life bar using a series of attacks were Donatello, Leonardo, and Flash. Donatello's Bow Storm and Flash's Fast Flash Punches are two attacks that can outpace some of Darkseid's fast combos and grant you the ability to do some fast damage, while Leonardo's Endless Loop attack, in which he spins around in a circle using his katanas, is a good long-range attack to break Darkseid Omega's fast combos, which when timed correctly grants you an opening to be able to zone him out with your projectile attacks after it hits. Fighting Darkseid Omega is particularly challenging because his attacks are both high damage dealing and fast. So you have to time your own attacks well to be able to do damage to him. On top of all that, he's tagging in and out with Kirby during the fight. Kirby is an original character in the game who is Martian Manhunter when he takes on the form of a Ninja Turtle, which I thought was a pretty cool idea. This version of Kirby has enhanced powers and is being mind controlled by Darkseid Omega. So when they tag in and out, the one who is not currently fighting regenerates his health, Marvel vs. Capcom style. So they use this tactic to regenerate their health. And they also tag in and out to get a surprise hit on you, as the one who is tagged in enters the fight by doing an attack on you. And they also tag in and out to get behind you to open you up to being hit by them. So my verdict for how formidable Darkseid is in this game is again true to his character, which is a difficult final boss fight to defeat. Now it's also worth noting that Darkseid appears as a boss in Justice League United, Justice League Legacy, and Justice League Task Force. All of these games were made by Zwitter, I think, which are fan-made games which were made by the fans for the fans. So in Justice League Legacy and Justice League United, Darkseid's like not that difficult of a boss to defeat, so he's on the easier side in these games. But I don't want to complain about fan-made games because fan-made games are made for free and they're made for the fans by the fans, and usually the makers of these games, they're not making a lot of money in the process. Like the only sort of like financial compensation they get is donations from other fans, which is not a lot of money. So complaining about why Darkseid is easy to defeat in a fan-made game is like very entitled, so I'm not really going to be doing that. But I just wanted to throw this out there that there's another set of fan-made games in which Darkseid is a boss, but he's not as excruciatingly hard to defeat as he is in Mugen and in TMNT X Justice League. Here we go, so here's our final tally, and you can see that among the official games, the only game that you can actually fight Darkseid true to character is in Injustice 2, because there's variable difficulty. So in Injustice 2, if you level up Darkseid to a really high level and keep all the other characters down to a lower level, then you can sort of like fight him like a final boss that way. Or if you equip Darkseid with very like powerful gear and equip all the other characters with like weaker gear, then that way you can fight him as like a final boss, and like the fight's gonna be really hard to win. So here's our breakdown, and it's a pretty clear relationship that the fan-made games made Darkseid more true to character than like the official games, because in the fan-made games, like when you fight Darkseid, it sort of simulates like how you would actually like fight him in like the DC multiverse or crossovers, where he's like excruciatingly hard to defeat. And I use the term scrub along with weaklings to describe how he is in Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe and Justice League Heroes, because going on a little bit of a tangent, in online gaming, like a scrub is usually someone who's played the game a lot but is still really bad at the game. So I think that's a good way to describe Darkseid in those two games. So I hope you like my video, I hope you like my analysis, I hope you like, and be sure to tune in next time when we see if this is also the case with Thanos. We're going to be looking at official games that Thanos has made an appearance in, and followed by all the fan-made games that I've played in which Thanos makes an appearance, and we'll see if this trend repeats again. Thanks, and bye.